program, Resilience in the Americas. It's a discussion about how the Red Cross designed its resilience intervention. It's part of a broader discussion that we've had about the 1 Billion Coalition, but this particular video looks specifically at how the RITA program was designed and some of the challenges around looking at resilience. It's a program that was run in 10 countries starting in 2012. You can see a map here, and it helped just to get a discussion as to how national societies can take a more active role on the resilience discussions. The first phase of this process that took place early in 2013 was about defining the Red Cross role in enhancing community resilience. We tried, first of all, to look at what is a resilient community. We based it on the 6 characteristics of a resilient community as defined by the IFRC as part of a consultancy with the ARUP company. And it looked at a resilient community as a community that is knowledgeable and healthy, that is organized, has infrastructure and services, obviously has the infrastructure and services, but is also able to maintain, repair, and renovate them. Economic opportunities being something very important, the ability to manage natural assets, and again, the word manage is very important, not just having them, but being able to manage them, and being connected with other partners outside. We have these 3 circles, the first one being more at the personal or household level, the second circle more about the community organization, and the third circle, the connectedness to the outside world, which is also the ability to connect, to gain resources from other partners. This model proved useful in helping to define our ideal end state, but it brought up the issue of whether resilience is an outcome, this ideal end state that we may or may never reach, or is it a process in which the Red Cross accompanies the community? The RITA project looked at the latter as the approach here. The second thing that we had to discuss was the measurements, whether we're looking at national level change, for example, unemployment rates, or do we want to look more at very specific community change, which of course helps us address the issue of Red Cross attribution. Are we the ones actually responsible for that change? So again, we looked more at the second aspect for part of RITA. The second step, once we had this agreement around what we meant by resilient community for the purpose of RITA, was identifying what those community needs are. We used this methodology designed by the American Red Cross, the Integrated Participatory Assessment, with a series of tools taken from the broader Red Cross movement toolkit, a lot of it from the VCA, looking at transect walk, historical profile, seasonal calendar, and so forth. And it led to some interesting conclusions. First of all, we realized that we had a strong consensus on the top priorities with strong regional differences. There's pretty much 15 priorities that really dominated all the discussions across all communities, but a broad range from solid waste to floods to water systems to vectors, and also a lot of difference between regions. So we were looking at South America, Central America, and the Caribbean, and while some of them were common, like solid waste management or water supply systems, Central America focused more on violence, issues around violence, South America more around issues related to disaster, while the Caribbean was more into prioritizing issues around community well-being, community centers, and so forth. With that in mind, we then looked at where's the Red Cross niche, and the RITA program designed or developed 4 levers of resilience. It kind of led to this resilience formula, seeing that we as the Red Cross will help the community be more resilient by making it more knowledgeable, again one of the original characteristics, but really focusing our role as Red Cross on imparting training to enhance the understanding of risks and changing behaviors. We want to help the community be more organized, and specifically our entry point is forming and training local committees and supporting community mechanisms for local action. Then we looked at our contribution around the connectedness. How do we help the community groups link up with other partners, especially in those areas where we were not able to help them, and making sure that their decisions are based on expertise by supporting feasibility studies either from within the community, could be engineers from within the community, from the Red Cross, or from external partners. And this is how we defined our contribution to more resilient communities, which means we're not looking at an ideal community which is resilient, but we're looking at these 4 entry points, these 4 levers, which will contribute to the overall 6 characteristics. But our contribution and our measurement will be around those 4 entry points. So once we had this niche, we designed a process to help the Red Cross understand how to approach a very long list of community interventions. community priorities. The first of all is whether the National Society has the mandate and the experience to address the topic. Meaning, if it suddenly comes up and a community wants to build a train, is that within the Red Cross mandate? Probably not. It helps us focus on where is our Red Cross real added value. We want to be very focused on where the National Society has resources and expertise. So if it has never done HIV awareness campaigns, and that is a priority in that community, then perhaps there's another partner who can do so. But for each of these problems, we want to also understand what is the underlying cause of the problem. So if we talk about solid waste management, is the solid waste management linked to a poor understanding of solid waste? In that case, how can we help increase the understanding of the risks related to poor solid waste management? Which brings us to the third question about identifying the activities to address these root causes. Based on that, we then see how the Red Cross can support specific activities, for example, around enhancing understanding around poor waste, solid waste management, and prioritizing them between year-to-year interventions, because RITA was defined from the start as a multi-year intervention. Without going into too much detail, here's an example of what a community action plan could look like, in which, for instance, solid waste disposal is identified as a priority, and the community identifies community cleanup as one of the actions that it wants to take. And the Red Cross wants to enhance the understanding around that because it considers something where it has expertise, so it can support the cleanup effort. It can install bins through perhaps partnerships with partners who could donate the bins, but it can also organize workshops using, for instance, the FAST methodology, demonstrating that actually the community cleanup is more effective when people are better aware that having trash lying around is actually a health risk. Dengue outbreak could also be linked to the use of the FAST methodology and to the support to community cleanup efforts, but also having additional efforts to link to the Ministry of Health. Some topics may not be of relevance. Here, the example of alcoholism. The Red Cross may determine that it is not the best suited partner for that, or even flooding risk, maybe something that considers that it does not at that point in time have the resources, or that another partner may be doing already. All this brings us to the discussion as to how RITA measures progress. And we use a single tool for the resilience components, which is the CARTS Resilience Survey, which looks at those 5 circles, the 6 characteristics actually, here are represented through these 5 circles: the organization, infrastructure and services, natural assets, economic opportunities, and the connectedness, through a series of simple questions, 24 questions, that measure levels of community cohesion, collective efficacy, the ability to get things done, and then the resource management, which ties in a lot of the 6 characteristics around the ability to manage infrastructure and services, the ability to manage natural assets, which is closely tied to the first 2 around the organizational capacity in the community. And there's an additional series of questions around disaster management. Now, this CART survey is complemented through a baseline specifically on the different sectors where we have more specific interventions, for example, disaster risk or water and sanitation, which helps measure the change in knowledge as defined in the 6 characteristics, which are these sector surveys. So this concludes our first part on how we define the entry point for the RITA around community resilience. Join us for a second video on the actual implementation.